Elegance is not about appearance alone. It is about how you move through the world, how you speak, how you choose restraint over reaction, and how your presence quietly resets the energy in every room you enter. There comes a moment in life when growth is no longer loud, when change no longer needs announcements, and when the strongest shifts happen so quietly that even the people who have known you the longest start to feel something different before they can explain it. This is not reinvention for attention, this is refinement for alignment, becoming so elegant that your energy introduces you before your name ever does, because elegance is not about doing more, it is about removing what no longer belongs. It is about choosing composure over chaos, intention over impulse, and self-respect over the need to be understood. When you elevate internally, your tone changes, your reactions slow down, your standards rise without explanation, and suddenly the way you walk away speaks louder than anything you could have said. This level of elegance makes people pause, not because you demand attention, but because your presence feels complete. You stop over-explaining, stop chasing approval, and stop negotiating your worth. Your words become measured, your silence becomes powerful, and your boundaries become non-negotiable without ever needing justification. People notice the difference because you are no longer trying to be seen, you are grounded in who you are becoming, and that shift creates a quiet authority that cannot be copied, only earned. This is the kind of transformation where you do not announce growth, you embody it, where you do not prove confidence, you practice it daily, and when people meet you again, they realize they are not meeting a new version of you, they are meeting the real one for the first time. Internal discipline over external validation is where true elegance is born, because the moment you stop allowing the opinions, reactions, and expectations of others to dictate how you feel about yourself, you step into a level of control that most people never experience. And this discipline is quiet, invisible, and deeply personal. It shows up in the way you pause before responding, in the way you choose your words carefully instead of emotionally, and in the way you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Internal discipline means you decide who you are before the world gets a vote, and once that decision is made, everything about how you move begins to change. You stop reacting for approval and start acting from alignment, and alignment always looks like elegance from the outside. When your validation comes from within, you no longer chase reactions, compliments, or reassurance, because you understand that needing constant affirmation puts your power in someone else's hands. And elegant people never outsource their self-worth. They cultivate it internally through consistency, self-respect, and standards. They refuse to compromise. This kind of discipline is built in moments no one sees. When you choose to keep your word even when it would be easier to break it, when you choose restraint instead of indulgence, and when you choose growth instead of comfort, each of these decisions strengthens your identity. And over time, your confidence becomes unshakable because it is no longer dependent on applause. External validation is loud, temporary, and addictive. It feels good in the moment, but leaves you empty afterward, always needing more, always wondering if you are still enough. Internal discipline is different. It is steady and calm. It does not spike your emotions or crash your sense of self. It creates a quiet certainty that allows you to walk into any room without needing to be the loudest or the most impressive, because you are secure in who you are. This security changes how people perceive you. They feel it before you speak, because there is nothing more elegant than someone who is comfortable standing in their own presence. Discipline over validation also means you stop performing versions of yourself to fit into spaces that do not honor you. You no longer adjust your values to be liked or soften your boundaries to be accepted. Instead, you let people self-select based on who you truly are, and this alone elevates your life, because the people who remain are aligned with your standards, not your need for approval. Elegance is choosing peace over pop, eularity, depth over attention, and integrity over image, and this choice becomes visible in your posture, your tone, and your decisions. When you master internal discipline, your reactions slow down, You no longer feel the urge to defend yourself in every conversation because you trust your character enough to let time speak for you. You understand that over-explaining is often a sign of insecurity, and elegance thrives in clarity, not justification, so you say less, but what you say carries weight. Your silence becomes intentional instead of awkward, and people start listening more closely because they sense that your words are considered, not impulsive. This discipline also reshapes how you handle criticism. Instead of taking it personally or using it as fuel for self-doubt, you evaluate it calmly, you extract what is useful and discard what is not, without emotional attachment, because your identity is no longer fragile. You are rooted in self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation of elegance. It allows you to grow without collapsing and to improve without self-betrayal. You do not need to prove anything to anyone because your focus is on becoming better, not looking better. Internal discipline requires you to sit with discomfort, to resist the urge to seek validation when you feel uncertain, and to trust the process of growth, even when there is no immediate reward. This is where most people quit, because discipline does not give instant gratification. It gives long-term respect, both from yourself and from others. And over time, this respect compounds. People begin to see you as grounded, reliable, and composed, not because you ask them to, but because your behavior consistently reflects it. As your dependence on external validation fades, your elegance becomes effortless. You are no longer trying to impress, convince, or compete. You are simply being, and being aligned is far more powerful than trying to be admired. Your presence feels calm, your energy feels intentional, and your life begins to reflect the inner order you have created. This is why internal discipline always shows on the outside, in the way you dress with simplicity, speak with clarity, and move with purpose. Because elegance is never forced, it is the natural result of a disciplined mind and a grounded sense of self. The more you practice internal discipline, the more selective you become with your time, your energy, and your emotional investment. You stop engaging in arguments that do not matter, stop entertaining dynamics that drain you, and stop chasing outcomes that are not aligned with your values. This selectiveness is often mistaken for distance or coldness, but in reality, it is maturity. It is understanding that not everything deserves access to you, and that protecting your inner peace is not selfish. It is necessary for sustained growth. Eventually, this way of living changes how people treat you, because people respond to the standards you set through. Your behavior, not the ones you explain through words. When you no longer beg for validation, people sense your self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency commands respect, not fear-based respect, but the kind that comes from consistency and composure, and this respect reinforces your discipline, creating a cycle where the more grounded you become, the more elegant your life feels, the more intentional your choices become, and the less you need anything from anyone to feel whole. Silent confidence is built long before it is ever noticed, because it comes from intentional behavior repeated consistently when no one is watching, and this is why it feels so different from confidence that needs to announce itself. Intentional behavior means you choose how you show up. Instead of letting circumstances decide for you, you choose calm when chaos would be easier. You choose clarity when emotion wants control. And over time, these choices shape a presence that feels grounded, not performative. People often mistake loudness for confidence, but true confidence is quiet because it does not need witnesses, it does not need validation, and it does not need to convince anyone of its strength. When your behavior is intentional, your actions align with your values even under pressure. You do not say things just to fill silence. You do not react just to release emotion. And you do not overextend yourself just to be liked. This restraint is not weakness. It is mastery. And mastery always reads as elegance. Because intentional people move with purpose, not impulse. They listen more than they speak, observe more than they assume, and respond only when it matters. This creates a rhythm in how you interact with the world that others subconsciously respect. Silent confidence shows up in how you enter a room without scanning for approval, how you sit without restlessness, and how you speak without rushing. These small details communicate more than words ever could. because behavior is the loudest form of communication. When your movements are controlled and your expressions are measured, people sense stability, and stability is magnetic. It makes others feel safe, curious, and attentive, not because you demand attention, but because your presence feels intentional, not scattered. Intentional behavior also means you stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You understand that over-explanation often comes from a need to be accepted or understood, and silent confidence does not need either. It trusts that the right people will understand without justification, and the wrong people do not deserve access to your reasoning, so you let your actions speak. You let consistency answer questions, and you let time reveal your character. This patience is rare, and rarity always elevates perception. When you live intentionally, you become selective with your words, choosing clarity over volume, precision over emotion, and truth over comfort. This makes your voice carry weight because you notice when someone speaks only when they have something meaningful to say. Silence in this context is not absence, it is presence, it is awareness, it is control, and control is the foundation of confidence that does not need to announce itself. Silent confidence is also visible in how you handle disrespect, disagreement, and disappointment. Instead of escalating or defending, you stay composed, not because you are unaffected, but because you are self-regulated. Emotional regulation is one of the clearest signs of internal power, and when you can manage your emotions without suppressing them or letting them control you, you project maturity. People quickly learn that you are not easily shaken, and this understanding changes how they engage with you. Intentional behavior requires discipline because reacting is easier than responding. Seeking attention is easier than maintaining standards, and following impulses is easier than honoring values. But every time you choose intention, you strengthen your identity, and identity-driven behavior creates coherence between who you are and how you act. This coherence is felt by others as authenticity, and authenticity is one of the strongest forms of confidence because it cannot be faked for long. As silent confidence grows, your need to prove yourself fades. You no longer measure your worth by outcomes or recognition. You measure it by alignment, by whether your actions reflect the person you are becoming. This internal metric frees you from comparison because comparison thrives on external markers, and intentional living shifts your focus inward, making you immune to distractions that pull others off course. Your body language begins to change as well. Your posture straightens not from effort, but from assurance. Your movements slow down because there is no urgency to impress, and your expressions soften because you are no longer guarded by insecurity. These changes may feel subtle to you, but they are obvious to others, because the body always reveals what the mind has mastered. Intentional behavior also reshapes your boundaries. You no longer feel guilty for saying no, nor do you feel obligated to explain your decisions. You understand that boundaries are not walls, they are filters, and silent confidence trusts these filters enough to enforce them without apology. This sends a clear message about how you expect to be treated, and people adjust accordingly, not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior made disrespect uncomfortable. Over time, this way of being attracts opportunities, relationships, and environments that match your level of intention. Because like attracts like and clarity attracts clarity, people who value depth, composure, and purpose gravitate toward those qualities, while those who thrive on chaos and validation fall away naturally. This is not isolation, it is alignment. And alignment is where silent confidence becomes visible in the life you build. Intentional behavior also means you accept responsibility for your choices without dramatizing them. You do not blame circumstances or people for where you are, and you do not seek sympathy for challenges you chose to face. This accountability strengthens your self-trust, and self-trust is the root of confidence. When you trust yourself, you move differently, you decide faster, and you doubt less. And this decisiveness is felt by others as leadership, even when you are not trying to lead. As your confidence becomes quieter, your presence becomes stronger because you are no longer fragmented by the need to perform. You are whole in your actions, consistent in your values, and steady in your behavior. This steadiness creates a sense of inevitability about you, as if you are exactly where you are meant to be, doing exactly what aligns with you, and people feel this without being able to name it. Because silent confidence does not announce itself, it reveals itself through intention lived daily. Identity elevation through consistency and self-respect is not a sudden transformation. It is a gradual recalibration of how you see yourself and what you allow into your life. Because who you become is shaped less by big moments and more by the standards you uphold. When no one is paying attention, consistency is what turns intention into identity. It is the quiet repetition of aligned choices that eventually make your presence feel undeniable. When your actions match your values day after day, you stop feeling fragmented, and that internal unity shows as elegance on the outside. Self-respect is the foundation of this elevation, because without it, consistency collapses under pressure. Self-respect means you honor your time, your energy, and your boundaries, even when it costs you comfort, approval, or familiarity. It means you no longer tolerate patterns that diminish you, even if they once felt normal. And this shift is uncomfortable at first because letting go of what is familiar often feels like loss. But in reality, it is space being created for who you are becoming. As you practice consistency, you begin to trust yourself more because trust is built through follow-through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. And self-trust is one of the most powerful forms of confidence. It quiets internal conflict, reduces hesitation, and strengthens decision-making. When you trust yourself, you stop seeking constant reassurance from others because you already believe in your ability to handle what comes next. Identity elevation also requires you to become honest about your standards, not the ones you talk about, but the ones you live by, because your real standards are revealed by what you tolerate. If you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or chaos, you reinforce an identity that accepts less than it deserves. But when you raise your standards through action, not words, you begin to attract environment, and relationships that reflect that elevation. This is not because the world changes, but because your filters do. Consistency simplifies your life, because when your values are clear, decisions become easier. You no longer negotiate with yourself about what is acceptable. You already know. And this clarity reduces mental clutter, emotional fatigue, and unnecessary conflict. People often mistake simplicity for lack of ambition, but simplicity born from self-respect is powerful. It allows you to focus deeply, move deliberately, and grow sustainably. As your identity elevates, your behavior becomes predictable in the best way. People know where you stand, what you allow, and how you respond. This predictability builds trust, because trust is not about perfection, it is about consistency. When your words align with your actions and your actions align with your values, others feel secure around you, and security is a rare and valuable presence in a world driven by uncertainty. Self-respect also changes how you speak to yourself. Your internal dialogue becomes more supportive, more honest, and less reactive. You stop tearing yourself down for mistakes and start correcting course with calm authority. This internal relationship sets the tone for every external interaction, because how you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. And when self-respect is non-negotiable internally, it becomes visible externally. Identity elevation through consistency does not mean rigidity. It means reliability. You allow yourself to evolve without abandoning your core values. You adapt without self-betrayal, and you grow without losing your center. This balance creates a sense of maturity that others recognize immediately. Maturity is not about age or experience, it is about emotional steadiness, accountability, and the ability to respond rather than react. Over time, consistency refines your presence. Your tone becomes calm, your reactions become measured, and your decisions become intentional. People may not notice these changes individually, but collectively they create a shift that is impossible to ignore. You feel different to be around, not because you are trying to project anything, but because your inner world is organized, and inner order always reflects outward. Self-respect also reshapes your relationship with time. You stop rushing to meet expectations that are not aligned with your goals, and you stop delaying what matters to you out of fear or doubt. You become punctual with your commitments, both to others and to yourself, and punctuality is a form of respect that communicates reliability without words. As your identity elevates, you become more comfortable with solitude, not because you withdraw, but because you are no longer afraid of being alone with your thoughts. Solitude becomes a space for reflection rather than escape, and this comfort with yourself strengthens your presence in social settings because you are no longer seeking distraction. You are choosing connection intentionally. Consistency also protects you during challenging times. When motivation fades and circumstances become difficult, your habits carry you forward. Because discipline outlasts emotion and identity built on consistency does not collapse under stress. It adapts. This resilience deepens your self-respect because you see yourself show up even when it is hard, and that evidence becomes unshakable. As self-respect becomes embedded in your identity, you stop negotiating your worth in conversations, relationships, and opportunities. You no longer feel the need to convince others of your value because you are clear on it yourself. This clarity allows you to walk away from what does not align without resentment, explanation, or drama. Walking away calmly is one of the most elegant expressions of self-respect. Identity elevation is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing what is inconsistent with who you truly are. It is subtraction, not addition. And this process requires patience, because consistency does not show immediate results, but it creates lasting change day by day. Choice B. Why choice? You become more grounded, more selective, and more aligned. Eventually, people begin to experience you differently, not because you announced a transformation, but because your behavior has become unmistakably stable, your presence feels settled, your words feel intentional, and your energy feels self-contained, and without realizing it, they start treating you with a level of respect that mirrors the one you have cultivated within yourself. Because identity elevation through consistency and self-respect is not something you claim, it is something others sense the moment you enter the room.